Welcome to lecture 27, so in software testing, so let's first do some recap. In the last lecture, we talked about path testing is ensure that each possible path of the program of the control flow has been tested, and test flow graph help us to visualize this. And the cyclomatic complexity allows us to measure the amount of tests required, but the adequacy of them. For example, we have maybe the condition number of conditions plus 1, the number of nodes minus the number of edges plus 1. And the integration test over the components testing. The top-down it's good for hierarchical testing, system usability testing, and demos. So first, the bottom-up is good for object-oriented design, real-time system, and the system with performance constraints. So why it's good for real-time system? I'm not very sure. And so additionally, we're going to talk about interface testing. It takes place when the modules and subsystems are integrated to create a larger system. And the object is to detect the faults which due from the interface errors or the valid assumptions about the interfaces. So particularly important for object-oriented development, the objects are defined by their interfaces. Right, exactly. So the key thing here about the interface types is that there are 4 types, which are parameter interfaces, shared memory interfaces, procedural interfaces, and message passing interfaces. So the thing is that the parameter interfaces mainly talks about with the data passed from one procedure to another. And it is directly linked with the message passing interfaces where it's like requesting the services from one system for another. For example, it's like the clinic request the service and get the service, and it sends the data and sends back. So this is send the data is like a parameter, is like passage from one procedure to another, and the message passing is like this one request the service and get back. So the shared memory interface is just like what if we all have the same access to one object? What is the interface of this shared object? And the procedural interface is like subsystem encapsulates a set of procedures that can be called by other subsystems. For example, it's just like what if it calls another in this procedure it calls another subcomponent, and that interfaces within that will be the procedural interfaces. And the interfaces testing uncovers the interface errors. There are 3 kinds of interface errors, which are interface misuse, interface misunderstanding, and timing errors. The interface misuse is like the calling components call other components and makes an error in its use of its interfaces, like the parameters in the wrong order, because it's just like it's not matching. And the interface misunderstanding is that the calling components in embedded assumptions about the behavior of the called component is correct. It is incorrect. The calling component embedded assumption that the behavior. It's just like we think this value should be maybe the total deposit, but of this credit union, but it is actually maybe the total balance of this month or this quarter. There's a misunderstanding of this meaning. And timing error is that the code and calling components operate in different speeds. Maybe like you first read and then write, and first write and then read. So you're going to read different things, okay? And the interface testing guidelines, the design test so that the parameters are called parameter to call the procedure at the extreme ends as their ranges is like partition testing. It's just like the equivalent partition. And always test the pointers to the non-pointers. It's a typical cases. Design cases called component to be found, and use the string testing. The string testing is like how much string that the system can undertake. And the shared memory system varies the order in the component that is activated in the shared it's just like varies the order that the components are activated will make a great difference, right? And so we are going to make sure that it is handled briefly. The reason why the stress test, one famous example of stress testing is that DOS attacked, and whether the system can handle that much information coming. And the stress testing exercises the system beyond its maximum design load, and to see how will the system failure under this pressure. It's particularly relevant to a distributed system like the server, the client system, and if the how will the network degradation when the network is overloading by many inquiries. And the object-oriented testing is the component we tested. The object class is initialized, it is larger grain than the individual function. We must extend the what is this green here? And obvious top the system down. We can test the functionality from the bottom up, and we can, from the manager's perspective, we can test them top down. The components to be tested in the object class are initialized as the objects. Yeah, if we want to test the class, we need the object to test the class, right? And then the testing levels, we can test the classes first and test the cluster, which is like subsystem, and testing the complete object-oriented system. The object class testing, we can complex the task coverage, the coverage of class by testing all the operations of the one object by setting the setting and get methods, and the exercise the object in all all possible states. The inheritance makes it more difficult to design the object class tested information not localized, because in the internal inheritance, we need first to test the superclass and then test the subclasses. And the test class example is whether station object oriented. The test classes are needed for all operation. We can use the state model to identify the state translation for the testing. It is just like the short. There are many states of this class, and we can going to enumerate all these classes. We're going to use the state testing sequences to, by doing different actions by testing the full functionality of the class. And the object integration is just like we can combine these classes to make a cluster. The cluster is a synonym of a subsystem. To identify cluster using the knowledge of the operation within the objects and the system features that are implemented in each cluster. And in testing the subsystem, which is also called cluster, we can use case based on the interaction between the system. We can test the system feature that is experienced by the user. We can use the string testing, test the system response to events, and the object interaction. The string testing, it tests the system response to events as process the train through the system. But this is not very clear, right? Why is string testing? What is string? And then it is the scenario-based testing. We identify the scenario of the use case. We can use the interaction diagram to show the objects involved in one scenario. It's just like the interaction diagram was can help us to identify the string of method executed. This sequence diagram help us to design the testing plan. Okay, so in this lecture we know the interface defects arise because of specification misleading and misunderstanding errors or invalid timing constraints. To test the object classes, we must test all operations, test all attributes, test all states, and the integrated class to be a cluster is